Hello and welcome to Blockchain Gaming World Daily with me, John Jordan. So the news we're discussing today is a bit of a surprise, but Dapper Labs, the company behind CryptoKitties, has signed a licensing deal with Ultimate Fighting Championship to make some sort of blockchain game and collectible based around people fighting in an octagon, as this article suggests. So, give a bit of context. So, Dapper Labs have made one kind of successful kind of a surprise accident sort of game, CryptoKitties. I think it was a bit of a surprise to everyone that did so well. Then they made another game this summer called Cheese Wizards, which in some ways was certainly very interesting conceptually, and it was certainly very interesting for the person who won, whether it was 600 ETH for winning the tournament, but didn't quite capture the imagination. I think we can say that. And since then, they've signed two big licensing deals with US sports companies. So they've signed a deal with the NBA, so Basketball Association, and now they signed this deal with UFC. Now, what's quite interesting about this is the obvious thing would be in both cases to go right. We've got these very valuable licenses, and it involves these kind of highly trained, recognizable sportsmen. At least if you're into the sports, and in North America, what we're going to do is we're going to kind of create these characters to come on a blockchain. Actually, this is not what Dapper Labs seems to be doing. So certainly for the NBA game, what they're doing is actually capturing specific moments, historic moments in games, and that's the kind of collectible you're having. So obviously it has these players in there, but it's not the players. You're not owning a card with the player and you're saying this one's got this height and this kind of jump ability and that sort of thing. Because we've kind of seen that. We've seen people trying to do that, and people are trying to do that. Certainly in the soccer world, there's lots of fantasy soccer games based on blockchain. And obviously not discuss that in this video, but there are some issues with that sort of thing. So, and with National Baseball Association, they're doing this kind of clever thing where you collect kind of clips, or we're not quite sure how that's going to pan out because they've not shown anything yet. But a kind of interesting way of kind of owning moments. So let's go down and quickly go through this article. So this article is on Dapper Labs Medium, and what's interesting, I guess, is what it says and what it doesn't say. So the interesting thing to note is, first thing is it's not on the Dapper Labs, actually the Dapper Labs Medium, it's on the Flow Network. So Flow Network is a new blockchain that Dapper Labs is kind of working on. And again, it's not out yet. I think it's kind of alpha-y sort of stage. But kind of the point of it is it gets around many of the problems with things like Ethereum, or with Ethereum, I guess, what we're talking about. So it has this kind of onboarding thing where you don't have to onboard with crypto wallets. You can onboard with kind of Web 2 kind of credentials. It's much faster, and they actually got we'll come to it in an article, a very different consensus model to kind of get this kind of speed kind of going up. So here we have. So actually, the first thing is interesting. This is very much positioned around this kind of Flow blockchain. So the first bit of the article is talking about the technical papers for Flow, and now the kind of latest partnership with the UFC. So what is this? And it's kind of, this is almost, I don't know if they have a title yet or something, but it's kind of, in a sense, quite clunky. They're calling it UFC on Flow. Is that the product name? If you link to that, it actually links to, I think it links out to an article. So I'm not going to click on that. But it's quite nuanced. So it's saying people can have unique or limited edition items. So I mean, all NFTs are unique, but they're not all. But you can have the kind of the multiple NFTs of this based on the same kind of character. But anyways, for collectors to buy, win digital assets trading on open marketplaces and games. So it's quite open ended here. So there's definitely a collectible element, and it's definitely a game element. It may not be this kind of necessarily the same thing. Kind of a bit of boilerplate about UFC. I don't know anything about UFC. So anyway, loads of people playing it apparently all over the world. Fast-growing, loyal, passionate, usual thing that everyone says about sports fans. Now, so this is interesting. This is the big thing for Dapper Labs in all their games, actually, but certainly for Flow. They talk about this idea that digital assets are open for developers or anyone to kind of build other products around. This is called composability. They go into that in a bit of detail further on. Oh, here we go, composability. So the point is they're creating these assets based in the UFC world, which may be characters. I guess they probably will be characters or to some degree, but could be other things as well. Could be these moments. Could be, you know, I don't know. We don't know anything about the game or anything about really what the collectibles are. But the point is, any developer can build a gallery application for fans to display what they own, or someone can build a financial market tracking the price of these things. And this is kind of what we see on blockchain anyway. You know, certainly card games like Gods Unchained. There's a lot of kind of online kind of databases now where they try and work out what the value of these things are. I mean, I don't think at the moment there's enough liquidity in the market to really do these things properly, but people are trying it. And the point of composability is this kind of stuff is built into the kind of DNA of how these things are created, which makes it easier. Third parties can build trading houses, pawn shops, reselling services, you know, whatever. So what's interesting is immediately, you know, they've stopped talking about the game and started talking about this kind of this deeper kind of thing. So it's interesting to announce something and have very little around it. To be fair, they did that with the NBA thing as well. So I don't quite know how quickly this kind of experience game sort of thing is coming to market. Obviously, it depends on Flow coming out, and Flow's Flow's only an alpha, so I don't really know how the UFC season works, even if there is a season. But anyway, what's kind of interesting is this idea of this is how Dapper Labs operates. So partners with love brands to drive consumer excitement. So what they want to do while they're doing these deals is they don't want to drive crypto audiences. They want to find audiences and then kind of bring them into a blockchain. It's interesting they use crypto so often. Crypto certainly has lots of connotations around it, and most of them not good. So it's interesting that they're using this kind of signaling. But anyway, they're going to partner with these brands, user-friendly onboarding, low-friction payments, and then empower developers to build other things on top, which worked really well for CryptoKitties, didn't work so well for Cheese Wizards, at least in terms of there wasn't a big audience there. So it's more about Flow, general purpose blockchain. They want kind of all this kind of stuff to enable many things more than games. So that'd be interesting to see how that pans out and how that changes the design of something like a UFC kind of experience. If they're trying to kind of get all this sort of stuff, messaging, licensing, micropayments, and DeFi in there. There's old Conor McGregor, the only person that anyone knows in UFC, unless you're into UFC. And then kind of, again, we're kind of straight into Flow and into the consensus mechanic. And I'm not going to go into this. I'm not that technical. But what's interesting here is Flow splits up the work of processing a transaction and validating a block into 4 steps. So instead of having an Ethereum or Bitcoin node that handles everything, they're splitting this up into different types of validated nodes. So you kind of separate this. So it's kind of much faster. Obviously, there are always this creates more complexity, more problems. You know, how do you make sure everything's kind of synced? I don't know about that. But it is kind of interesting that this is the article about the UFC game, and the article is not about the UFC game in particular. We don't even really have a title of it. All we know, it will be an unprecedented crypto-enabled experience. And maybe that's kind of the interesting thing that I think at the moment in the blockchain space and even in the DApp space, a lot of the stuff we're trying to do is recreate things that happen in the centralized world in a decentralized way. And surprise, surprise, it doesn't really work very well. So maybe that is the right approach. I don't know, because often you maybe want to think about what the user wants and kind of build backwards from that. So we will see. I just guess what's interesting is Dapper Labs has raised a lot of money, but it is a kind of company that is always doing surprising things, which I think is probably what we want in this space, rather than doing the obvious thing. The point about blockchain is it has many challenges, but also has a lot of opportunities, and kind of working out how to balance those two things and obviously make the most of the opportunities while kind of working around the challenges is what's going to be key. And now for Dapper, that's all going to be about Flow. So it doesn't really matter how great the experiences they're creating on top of Flow. They've got to get Flow to work. So I guess that's the focus of what we need to be looking at in the future. Thanks very much for watching this video. If you have any comments, please put them in the comments box. Please do subscribe to the channel, all about the world of blockchain games, which is pretty active, lots going on. Not all of it good, but at some point it'll be like the end of the tunnel. Anyway, thanks for watching, and hope to see you again soon.